All right, so good morning, everyone. We are very excited. Thank you for joining us today. This is the Daily Africa Summit. The Daily NG is a leading oil and gas and energy publications in Nigeria, in Africa, and we are even a voice all over the world. We try as much as possible to address issues that affect energy, oil and gas in our space. And today, of course, it's no longer news that there is a crisis in the energy sector all over the world. If it were a disease, then it would be a pandemic. And world leaders are adjusting here and there, running helter-skelter, trying to provide solutions to this. As a responsible leader in our sector, we deem it fit that we should address this issue. And so in order to do that, we have a very experienced professional, someone who fits the bill to address the issue. So today we have Mr. Michael Kelly, who is going to be speaking on this very vital issue, the energy crisis all over the world. He's going to examine the challenges, the prospects, the opportunities, and how it affects everyone all over the world. So, but before he comes up, I'm going to play a video that will introduce him adequately to us. So ladies and gentlemen, please sit tight as we learn more about who our speaker for today will be.
Mr. Michael Kelly is Chief Advocacy Officer and Deputy Managing Director at the World LPG Association, WLPGA. He brings a multicultural touch to his role because of his experience working throughout the world. Michael spent 5 years working for the International Chamber of Commerce, ICC, where he was responsible for the energy and environment policy portfolio, and led business delegations in United Nations, UN-level negotiations on topics in this area. Before the ICC, Michael Kelly has lived and worked in the United Kingdom, UK, Sweden, China, Japan, Italy, and the United States, US, and is fluent in 4 languages. Living in so many different countries provide him with an understanding of different cultures and ways of working. Michael's role is to promote the benefits of liquefied petroleum gas, LPG, both in the developing world and in more mature markets. He acts as the interface between the industry, governments, development agencies, intragovernmental bodies, such as the UN and the World Bank, and the non-governmental organization, NGO community. Michael holds a master's degree in international relations from the George Washington University in Washington, D.C.
So thank you very much. That is who Mr. Michael Kelly is. So please, everyone, I'd like you to make welcome Mr. Michael Kelly as he takes us on this insightful journey. Mr. Michael Kelly, please, over to you, sir.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that kind introduction and that great video. I hope to get a copy of it. Right. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and you let me know when you see it, and then I'll take us through this discussion. Are you seeing the screen?
Yes, we can.
You are. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, look. My name is Michael Kelly. Again, thank you for that kind introduction, and let me thank the organizers in the Daily Africa Summit for this invitation. It's always interesting to speak to these different types of organizations about what's happening in our industry, and I have to say that it's very topical because of the amount of growth which we're seeing in the Nigerian market, in particular, over the last 2 or 3 years, and that growth seems to be accelerating. So it's, I think, a very exciting time to be in our industry in Nigeria. But it is also quite a complicated time on what's going on around the world. And I want to walk you through some of the different challenges that we're facing as an industry. These challenges aren't unique to our industry, so it's happening to everyone. But it is certainly an uncertain time with a lot of changes and a lot of geopolitical upheaval, which I'm sure you're all aware of. It's interesting to think about what the implications will be for our industry in developed and developing countries, and what we as an organization can do, the WLPGA, and I'll tell you a little bit about who we are, the World LPG Association, but as a strategy to ensure that the global industry weathers these different challenges. The first, and obviously one of the most impactful of these events, has been the COVID-19 pandemic that we seem to be moving away from. Unfortunately, there have been knock-on effects from the COVID-19 pandemic, including a lot of supply chain issues that are a drag on the global economy as it really started to get going and emerge from this pandemic. One thing to bear in mind about the pandemic is that as an industry, the LPG industry was given the right to operate, permission to operate everywhere around the world very quickly. I don't know a single market where government didn't grant the LPG industry the right to continue operations, even under the most stringent shelter at home orders. Even in Shanghai recently, where they had a very strict lockdown, the industry continued to deliver energy and demonstrated that we as an industry are extremely flexible, adaptable, resilient, and gritty. And we're an industry to count on when there's a crisis. And I think that's something that all of us should be very proud of, all of us that are in the industry. Going back. Obviously, from a geopolitical point of view, one of the big issues I've been asked to touch on has been the crisis in Ukraine, the invasion of Ukraine by Russian forces in February of this year. The short-term repercussions on our industry don't seem to be huge because LPG has supply points all over the world. It seems like we won't be as impacted as European markets, for example. But one thing we do see is that there's a scramble in Europe right now before winter to move from natural gas to alternatives. And one of those alternatives is LPG. And what may happen is, as European markets start to shift industrial applications in Germany, for example, from natural gas, which was coming in from Russia, to LPG, they may start to purchase a lot of the product that was destined for African markets and price African markets out. And there could be that kind of knock-on effect if consumption in European markets starts to spike, which it may do as we hit the winter months in the Northern Hemisphere. So that is something for us to consider. It's also something for us to consider how we position the industry in this discussion about security of supply, because the flexibility, the ease of transport, the ease of storage, all of these characteristics make our product an extremely good product in this context. And then obviously climate change, something that is growing in public consciousness. I'm sure you're all aware of the Glasgow negotiations, which took place last year in November, COP26. As an industry, we've kind of stayed out of this discussion in the past, but now we are very much involved in the UN process, representing the interests of the industry. We have a really good story to tell. Propane and butane are not on the list of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, which is the scientific body for the United Nations, as greenhouse gases, whereas methane, natural gas, is. And at point of combustion, our CO2 emissions are relatively low. Something to think about, I think, for this audience, and maybe for some questions later, is that COP27 this year will be in Sharm el-Sheikh in Africa. It's unclear whether or not there will be a focus on African issues, but it would make a lot of sense to do that. I think it's maybe the second or third COP that has ever been held in Africa. There was one held in Durban a few years ago. But it is an opportunity to highlight some of the challenges that African markets are facing. A financial crisis seems to be looming, with inflation spiking around the world, with the supply chain issues emerging from the pandemic that still linger, and then a contraction in global markets. Is the LPG industry recession-proof? We saw this during the pandemic. There were some markets like Indonesia, where you have big populations and high penetration. Brazil is another one. India, where because people were staying home and cooking, our members in those markets had very, very good years. And if we go into a financial crisis, there's a chance that our industry will be insulated to it to a certain extent. I'm not sure how that would impact markets which are more sensitive to global prices, like the Nigerian market. It may actually be a negative overall. And then looking at developing countries and the debt crisis which Sri Lanka is going through, and then challenges like food scarcity. Although it seems like some ships are starting to leave the ports in Ukraine and Odessa, bringing grain and meal to markets that need it. But there does seem to be a lot of instability in our future, with Sri Lanka being maybe a harbinger for other markets. This could cause a rise of populism. So we see leaders like Donald Trump, Viktor Orban, Boris Johnson in the West. It could cause refugee flows towards Europe and North America, and just increase instability overall. So all these things are what are happening at the moment. And then finally, and this is happening in developed countries, you have many policymakers who have agreed to some very aggressive targets to reduce fossil fuels in their markets. And some of them aren't very realistic, and they'd be the first to admit that. And also in the context of what's happening in Ukraine, this is becoming more pronounced. But this is something which will not go away. So as an industry, we have to decide how we want to deal with this, how we want to face this challenge. In European markets and in the West Coast of the United States and in places like New Zealand, Japan, there's a lot of investment that's going into renewable forms of LPG, thinking that that will be the way to allow our industry to continue to operate in some of these more aggressive markets. So this is a context, and I hope I didn't scare the pants off of everyone, but it's a very, very unsettled geopolitical policy framework, financial picture. And the question we should ask ourselves, and that I want you to think about as we go through this discussion, is where does and should LPG fit into this discussion? And it's a very simple answer. And that is LPG should fit in everywhere. Everywhere in the world has an LPG market, whether it's very sophisticated or very primitive. It's a technology with which there's no intellectual property challenges. It exists absolutely everywhere. It's well known. It's a mature industry that understands very well how to manage distribution. And it's the only fuel that can make energy more efficient and reduce emissions across the globe. So we like to say that if you're using LPG in the developing world and you're moving people from cooking on biomass to cooking on LPG, you're decarbonizing. In the developed world, if you're moving people away from diesel to using LPG, you're decarbonizing. And further than that, if you're moving people from using fossil LPG to using renewable LPG, you're decarbonizing. We can help countries reach their targets no matter what their level of energy maturity or what development stage they're at. And it's a fuel that's adaptable and flexible and can be used absolutely everywhere. I'm originally from Atlanta, Georgia, which is the home of Coca-Cola, the headquarters of Coca-Cola. And we like to say that LPG can be used can go anywhere you can get Coca-Cola. And I think we all know that you can find Coca-Cola absolutely everywhere on the planet. So that kind of flexibility makes LPG a real game changer, and particularly in places that are remote or don't have good infrastructure. Also, and this was proven in the pandemic, and I referenced it in the slide when I was talking about what happened during the COVID-19 pandemic, is the ability of our industry to adapt, the agility of our supply chains, the flexibility that we showed. This is something which is extremely attractive to policymakers. They know that our industry will continue to deliver, providing energy to end users, while at the same time protecting them and protecting our staff and the people that work for the industry. And that's extremely important. And then, a technology which is being developed is this idea of partnering LPG with renewable electricity systems. One of the challenges renewable electricity systems face is intermittency. So there's days when there's no sun, there's days when there's no wind. Because you can store LPG for the long term without any deterioration in the quality of the product, it makes an ideal partner for these kind of systems, particularly in power generation. And this is an area that we are promoting, and there's a lot of money going into developing this technology. And then obviously, as I mentioned before, renewable LPG, from biosources. Some of them come from synthetic sources. We lump it all under the umbrella of RLPG. Some of it comes from municipal waste, but it offers an excellent opportunity to develop product from different sources, and also zero or low carbon or zero carbon product that we can use to position the industry as for the future, for a low carbon future. And this is a message I want to send to you today. So the global outlook is quite complicated, and the next few years are certainly going to be bumpy. But our industry does have a lot of built-in advantages, not only the characteristics of the product, but also the flexibility, the adaptability, the agility of the industry. I want to turn your attention a little bit. I'm going to tell you about who we are and give you an overview of what happened in the industry in 2021, so you can identify trends. And then we'll wrap up a bit. But first, let me tell you, WPGA, I have to sing for my supper. I have to say who I am and who we are. We are the apex body of the LPG industry, the global association. We have over 300 members in 193 countries, roughly, around the world. So we essentially span the globe and represent the industry from production to distribution, through equipment manufacturing, shipping, big infrastructure, all the way down to the end user. Some of our members are multinationals that have operations in many different countries, and some of our members are companies that have the operations just in one country. Our mission is defined by 3 goals. The first is advocacy, which I lead, and that is to promote LPG as part of the solution to future energy challenges. So a solution, a fuel that can be used in a low carbon context in the future. Business improvement, and this is where we focus on good industry practices, how we as an industry can perform better, which is extremely important, and keep our customers safe and grow in a safe and sustainable way. And then innovation and growth, and this is where we focus on development of new technologies, and not just, I've talked a lot about renewable LPG, but I should also mention that there's a technological development which is coming right now in East Africa, which is pay-as-you-go systems. It's being pioneered in Kenya with using M-Pesa, which is a kind of tax money. And we have looked at that and are trying to see how that technology could be used in a different context. So in countries like Brazil or Bangladesh that face similar challenges. On advocacy, our focus is on decarbonization, the sustainable development goals, the post-COVID-19 recovery, and then security of supply, which has been added in. And those will shift, those 3 or 4 goals will shift at the end of this year as we go into a new 3-year strategic period. For business improvement, it's safety, which is a huge issue as a combustible fuel. Digitalization, so how does our industry become more technologically savvy and use the potential that exists with IT? What I was telling you about the pay-as-you-go systems is one great example of that. And then diversity. We have found that our industry is extremely male, and trying to get more women in particular into the industry at all levels, whether it's operations or executive, is also extremely important for the work that we do. And then with innovation and growth, we focus on renewable LPG and how we develop that, and then many different applications, cooking, marine technology, which is a big growth area, LPG being used for power generation, and autogas, which is LPG for transportation. One of our initiatives, and I encourage you every year to follow this, is on the 7th of June every year is LPG Day. This is the 4th edition. We did it this year. And we encourage our members to get involved and to celebrate LPG Day for approximately 24 hours. We have registered this, So it's recognized around the world as LPG Day. And if you're a communications director, if you have a company, it's a great opportunity to promote the fuel and the industry and the benefits that it provides. We also have an annual event called LPG Week. Last year was in Dubai. This year in November, it'll be in New Delhi. 2023, it'll be in Rome. And in 2024, we'll be in Cape Town in Africa for only the third time. And that 2024 will definitely have a focus on African markets. So if you're thinking of coming, this is a full week of events that focus on all different aspects and elements of the industry, along with an exhibition. So just to give you an overview of what's happened up until 2021, this is from our statistical review.
Hello, Mr. Michael.
Yes.
Please, you may need to round up so you can take questions. We have just 10 more minutes to run on this program.
Okay. So should I go quick?
Very quick, please. Because we
All
have
right.
some questions for you.
Okay. All right. Well, you know what? I'll go through this section and then I'll just stop. So you can see that there's a price spike in 2021. I'm sure you all noticed it, and that is continuing into 2022, although it's starting to go down. Overall production, the pandemic didn't impact our industry that much. There's been a drop in some production in most countries, but we're still at 329 million tons around the world. And then in consumption, there was a decline. Although, as I pointed out, countries like India that have big domestic sectors actually went up. But overall, there was a decline. A lot of that was driven by a drop in auto gas consumption, which you can see here. It's a huge amount drop in all these shelter-at-home orders that existed and asked people to stay home. So no one was driving. Final slide, and then we can take questions. We did a promotion on auto gas in Nigeria earlier this year on social media to support the benefits that auto gas can bring to the Nigerian market in terms of clean air. And the campaign ran from April for 4 weeks, and we had more than 500,000 impressions on social media. This is the kind of work we do and the kind of work the way we can support your markets. And I'm quite happy to stop here and leave some time for questions if there are any.
All right, thank you, Mr. Michael.
Mm-hmm.
We need to really appreciate you for the depth of knowledge you've shared with us today. In all sincerity, you've covered so much ground in so little a time. That actually displays your level of professionalism and experience in this field. We thank you. We are so grateful. Thank you very much. However, because of our time, we may not be able to take the questions, but we want to cut a deal with you. We shall send you the questions, and we'll be very grateful if you can give us the answers, so we make it available to our viewers and followers on our social media handles and on our website. Will that be okay?
I'll certainly do my best.
All right, thank you very much. We appreciate you. Okay, before we go, we have an erudite professional here, to someone who's very vast in this industry. His name is Dr. Felix. He's the lead promoter, Energy Hub Nigeria. Dr. Felix.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yes.
It's okay. First, I must thank my friend for inviting me to this. And then, Michael, I also must thank you for, what you are doing. I think for me, right now, I stand in between the typical traditional oil and gas and, the transition, how to make sure that, one does not suffer for the other, especially for Nigeria and Africa. Nigeria, of course, Michael, I guess you know that the vision for this country, we are in the decade of gas, by the government declared decade of gas. And globally, it's even Europe, you know that, have also accepted that gas will be a useful transition fuel in between the typical crude oil and then the renewables. So LPG, is something, Nigeria, we've made series of attempts dual, CNG, LPG, to be able to even power our cars. But right now, in the transition, these are the fuel, these are the products that will be moving the country. I also believe that Nigeria is more of a gas country than an oil country, because we just 37 billion barrels and more than a 200 TCF of proven, and then also close to 600 TCF of gas that can be converted. Nigeria stands very tall in the gas world. We stand very tall, and so projects of this and then ideas of this will easily find its platform in Nigeria. Of course, the effort in LNG 27 and to domesticate the flare gas, all of that. We have quite a few people who are coming in trying to see how to get LNG, how to get LPG, how to get CNG. So that is just what I want to say, that you are, I believe, presenting to a group, especially to Nigerians, that are, I would say, transiting from the typical crude oil dominant economy to gas economy. I see this country, regardless of the challenges we go through. Of course, you also know the investment that is going on, the Nigerian Morocco pipeline, the Nigerian AKK plus the Trans-Niger, Sahara, plant that will go straight, pipeline will go to Europe. We are going to be a gas country. There is no way we can run away from it. And that is what the government is poised to do. And so partners like you, working in this environment will surely be a very, very strong team to partner with. So once again, thank you for the opportunity. And I believe we have more. I operate what we call Energy Hub. The vision of Energy Hub came when I saw that a transition is coming, and Energy Hub is a platform that brings energy people. Right. We have a lot of collaborations on the platform.
Sorry.
So this is
our time is. Hello, Dr. Felix.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, sure. I'm done. So thank you so much for the opportunity, and then maybe there'll be opportunity to interact in the future. God bless.
All right. Thank you so much. We are so grateful. We appreciate this. We are sorry we had to put everybody on their toes because of our time. Once again, Mr. Michael Kelly, are you still around? Hello, Mr. Michael.
Yes, I'm here. I'm still here.
Thank you. Once again, we want to appreciate what you've done for us today. You've started a thought-provoking session that I am very sure will continue. We want to appreciate you also by giving you an E award. You've done so well, and the organizers of this program has deemed it fit to give you a certificate of appreciation. So we're going to show it to you now. And please, just a minute.
Sure.
So, Mr. Michael, on behalf of the Daily Africa.
Yes, thank you very much. It's very.
All right. We'd like to give you this certificate of appreciation for your thought-provoking lecture on the energy crisis, the issues, problems, prospects, and opportunities in producing, distributing, and utilizing LPG in Africa and other countries. Thank you very, very much. And we also promise to send you the video just as you have requested. So,
thank you.
All right. So I will be inviting you again because, and by the grace of God, we will have more time for this, because the time we actually have for this event is just not sufficient for the issues that need discussions. I hope that will be okay with you, sir.
That's fine. Thank you so much. It's been my pleasure.
All right. So, Dr. Felix, we appreciate you. Thank you for your insightful contributions. Thank you for setting the pace in Nigeria. We appreciate all you've done in the NLG sector. And all our attendees, we thank you. Please,
thank you so
I want
much.
you all to help me put your hands together for Mr. Michael Kelly. He did so well, so well. Thank you, and thank you. So we're going to end the meeting now. We'll